No, I'm Chris.
Yeah.
No, you're Chris.
No, you're TC. I'm
I'm
Chris.
okay. And we both love photography, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I got my start. Oh gosh, I never did have a well, I did have a film camera. It was my brother's. You know, the roll. You put your roll of film in, and
Yeah.
you use the trigger thing to advance the film, and then you looked on the back of it, and it said what your first picture, and you took it, and then you rolled it again, and then you sent the film off. I didn't develop the film myself. This was like 80s, early 80s, in the 80s.
Okay.
Then I never got into, all kinds of stuff happened. I got married and moved and got divorced and I had kids and blah, blah, yada, yada. Ended up in Pennsylvania in 1988. Met a wonderful woman, married, and then became a garden writer up here and started taking my own photos for flowers. And this was in oh six, 2006.
Wow.
That's when I got my first digital camera. And it was a little old Sony DSC 5 megapixel.
Was it a point and shoot or was it a?
Yes, point and shoot.
Okay.
Well, it had a LCD and a viewfinder, but yeah, it was, and that's what I took photos with, and flowers, and I thought it was pretty neat, doing that. And then that's really how I fell in love with photography. Flowers, roses, man, roses.
Yeah. How
So
many
what about you?
megapixels
How
was
did
that
you?
camera?
I bet my first camera. No, you've probably been at it longer. I don't know how long. What's your story about?
Oh,
How did you?
okay. So I started photography definitely not in the 80s. It was probably more in the 90s with a disposable throwaway camera that you had to go and, the 1 hour photo film developing system.
Yes,
Yeah. So
that was all the craze, man. Everybody had those cameras.
yeah, yeah. And,
Yeah.
my mom got it for me on my first Boy Scout trip.
Oh, you was a Boy Scout. Wow, I was too.
Well, I don't know. I wasn't a good one. I was.
Well, okay. Well,
Yeah.
you don't have to admit anything now. No,
Yeah,
just-
I was definitely a Boy Scout, and
Okay.
it was our first camping trip, and my mom gave me this disposable camera, and my friend and I, this is the first time that we were like, whoa, look at this, we can take photos. Well, because there was that little built-in flash that had to charge,
Yeah.
I took a ton of night photos, and it was of like random things. Well, you only get like 24 exposures on that little disposable camera. And we're taking all these photos at night. And you don't know what you're getting because
You like to flash at night or something, huh?
yeah, yeah. Like during the day, I never even thought to pick up the camera, but I just thought it was fun to make the flash go off. So, and what are you going to do? I was like 14, 13. So I was a
Fire
little
that
kid.
flash, man. That's what you're going to do. Fire the flash. It looks cool.
Yeah. So I get the first photo back or the first development of photos back. And I
Yeah,
think
you
only,
did you have to send the whole camera off?
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
you go to Rite
Yeah,
Aid.
you sent the whole camera in, everything. You just sent
Right.
the whole thing in. Yeah.
Yeah, and it wasn't like it was a far place. Like this isn't. It was right across the street from our house, so I just walked over. I dropped it off at the Rite Aid, and the dude was like, "Yeah, come back in about 2 hours." Even though it was a 1 hour development, they told me to come back in 2 hours. I remember that.
And you're thinking, what?
Yeah,
But the sign
Well,
says 2 hours, man.
yeah, and truth be told, I didn't really care. I was a teenager, like whatever. So I come back, I get my 24 exposures, and this is also in the time where they would give you duplicates of like 4x6s or whatever
Yeah.
it is that you printed. So even though I only had 24 exposures, I ended up with like 48 photos.
You got the film strip, the negative film strip too?
Yeah,
With
they
them?
give you,
Yeah.
yeah. And
So
they
you
cut,
went and looked at them, and then you just like, oh man, I'm a photographer.
no, no. I looked at them and I was like, man, this is stupid. Like, so
Oh
yeah,
no.
I was not impressed. I was not impressed.
Oh really?
So fast forward a little bit,
Yeah.
the digital age kind of came out, and I played around with the or the disposable cameras for a long time, which apparently are back in style now. A lot of people are.
Yeah, vintage. Sometimes you'll see vintage photographs from those things that are really cool.
Yeah. So I ended up getting a point and shoot, and I think it was a Kodak, like because Kodak used to be a company.
Oh,
Now,
huge! Oh, yeah, they were huge, man.
yeah, that was my
Everybody
first
had a
point and
Kodak.
shoot.
Everybody wanted a Kodak. They were in the news recently for something. I forgot what it was, but
Yeah, they're not making it's not for film because
yeah, it was
they're
for
not doing that anymore. But
yeah.
so I had the digital point and shoot, and I thought it was really cool. I was making photos, taking photos of almost anything, and back in the day, the memory cards were like maybe 2 megabytes or 5 megabytes. They weren't
5 at the
huge.
most, yeah. Or no,
Yeah,
they were, yeah. I was the one I have in my Sony is 512 megabyte
yeah,
card.
yeah. So
Now I looked. I was just curious to see how much they cost. Now I can buy that. It's long and slender. I can still buy it $59.
wow.
I know. To get back to your story though. You picked up this other camera now. Now you're really
Well, yeah. So I was exploring. I didn't have any real direction of what I was photographing. I was just messing around with the camera, and then I joined the military because through high school I was making an identity for myself, if that's what we want to call it.
of
I,
course.
I joined the military, and it wasn't until later on in my career I had kids, and that's the reason I really
There
picked
you
up
go.
photography again, and
See,
that's
I
why.
missed that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that there, and then here you are, still
yeah,
sticking your camera in your kid's face.
yeah. The very first camera that I picked up with my kids was a Nikon D5200, and I had that camera all the way up until 2020 when I sold it so I can pay for my
Upgrade.
Canon R6. So
Oh,
so I can get a little bit of extra money for my R6, which uh, by far one of my favorite cameras.
is that
N-
the mirrorless R
Yeah,
six?
yeah, the mirrorless one. Before that, I was using a Nikon D610 and a Nikon D3400. I was a huge Nikon fan,
Yeah,
and
sounds like it. I've never owned a Nikon camera, but I know they make great cameras.
Nikon is amazing. I love Nikon.
For a good friend of mine, local, just bought. What's the big granddaddy?
The Z9.
No, not mirrorless. It's the 8500, 850. Is there a
810.
Nikon D8?
Oh yeah, the 850. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
850. Yeah,
D850.
she just
Yeah.
got. Yeah, and her pictures, her photographs, just from that. I don't know what she had before, but it was an upgrade for her. She had, of course, had to save up for it. Them things are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Cameras are not
photography?
cheap.
No, it's not a cheap hobby, man. It's like, okay, what have you get yourself into? And my wife says, "Is that another lens?"
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. How much did that set the bank account back?
Well, yeah, and it's like, oh, you check the bank account. So she, I didn't know she was checking it. No.
Yeah. Nah, don't worry. I think many people will probably resonate with that because my
Oh,
wife
I'm
says the
certain.
same
Well,
thing.
yeah, I'm sure you feel this. You've been there, and same thing. It's just, and then it becomes more. You gotta think. Okay, it's not all about what is it. There's that syndrome you get. Oh, you want more gear. There was an acronym that came out for it.
Gas.
Yeah,
Gear
gear
acquisition syndrome.
syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I actually have a little bit of that right now.
Oh, I still take. I'm on meds for it.
Well, you need to pass some of those meds my way because,
I'm telling you, yeah, it's. But I mean, if you can see the whole thing, what's so hard, Chris, and if you know a sure way of going about this, is explaining to someone of the need of that piece of equipment you just paid a gazillion dollars for. Okay, explain the need for that in terms that your average spouse can understand and maybe accept, but.
yeah. Now, for me, my wife is actually extremely supportive of my
Mine is too.
photography, and
Yeah, we're lucky, buddy. We
yeah,
are. We're
yeah,
lucky. Because I've never like went out and bought stuff like, and the kids have holes in their shoes and stuff. I don't.
right.
And you don't sacrifice bread for a new. You don't. It's
You
just common
don't?
sense.
Are you sure?
Well,
Nah. All jokes aside, no.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it can be an expensive hobby. Yeah,
Oh yeah. It
yeah.
is absolutely, but it can also be very cost effective because, I mean, we all have one of these things in our pockets.
Hmm.
And, for the audio listeners, I'm holding up my iPhone. And it doesn't even have to be an iPhone itself. It's just a cell phone. Like the cameras and cell phones are amazing. And,
These days, there's just. I mean, I've been using my iPhone camera, this one, the 14 Pro Max, more than any other. And I've been an iPhone user since the 3GS iPhone,
oh, wow.
but
Yeah.
never. And then the 12 Pro, I had that last year. I mean, a couple years, and that camera was great. And that they just every year they seem like what's going to be next. They're going to be making what is it that it's not full frame. It's or micro four thirds or APS-C. There's another format of camera
Oh,
that's big. That's really expensive when you buy the camera itself. That
oh,
shoots medium format.
medium format.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. They're going to be making phones now that can shoot medium format now, or
Yeah,
will
I
that
think
ever?
that's overkill. Like, what do you need a medium format phone
I,
for? Like,
well,
are,
why did
are
I
you
need
buying a
my?
camera or are you buying a phone?
I know,
Like if
and
you want to,
therein lies the dilemma, man. I
yeah,
mean, it's actually um, a negative space.
yeah,
No, no. What was the name? What are the name of the podcast is?
negative
It's
exposure.
negative exposure.
Yeah,
See, we're giving negative exposure when we say we don't need this or we don't need that. But
yeah,
then when you go to get it, you can't justify it, and it is negative exposure.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. So I know that you can use your cell phone to take great photos,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
the iOS and Samsung and all these phones out there, they do a great job with the software and even the hardware, the lens and things of that sort. The problem for me is uh, I don't feel as creative when I have a cell phone in my hand, and
I'm
sometimes I even
there
feel
with you.
nauseous.
I am there with you, man. I feel the
Yeah,
same way.
yeah,
And trying to hold it a certain way, it's like
right.
no, it just don't feel like I'm. No,
Yeah.
but people do it. You see the commercials when the new every year the new iPhone commercials or any smartphone this was filmed on an iPhone Pro
Yeah,
and
sometimes I
it's
question that because it's
it
like,
well
okay,
yeah, I know
was
it's
it
like
really?
oh, I don't know. There's got
You
to
know?
be a catch somewhere, man. It
Yeah,
couldn't have been that great,
yeah,
but maybe it is. But
yeah. I was actually watching a Elgato, which is a digital company. They primarily focus on streaming items and things like that for
well,
gamers.
I had one of their boom arms.
Okay, so they just came out with a webcam, and they're the first company that apparently has been using actual video from their webcam in all of their marketing material.
Oh
There's a
my,
YouTuber, I think his name is Helen Keller. That's probably not the right way. Yeah, I'll put the link to the video that I'm referencing in the show notes here or the description of this podcast. But the point is, there are companies out there that they'll tell you this came from this product, but it actually didn't, or they won't tell you that, like point blank. They'll just make you believe, like, hey, this video or this thing that you're looking at was actually produced from this device, and in all actuality, they're using like these cinema 4K red cameras,
but
and
I saw something about that Elgato camera, Chris.
yeah.
I saw something
What did you
about that.
see? Was
Well,
it good or bad? Was it
it was
negative
good, but
exposure?
it was good. It no, it wasn't negative exposure. It was positive. What I heard, and
Okay.
it's kind of like you said. It was. I forget how much it cost, but it's like. 'Cause, you know, I mean, it's kind of like you said. It was. I forget how much it cost, but it's. It's kind of like you said. It was. I forget how much it cost, but it's. It's kind of like you said. It was. I forget how much it cost, but it's like It was on a YouTube. I forget who
Yeah,
what it was, but it came in my YouTube feed about it, about this
yeah,
Elgato, and it made me think of my boom up mic arm that would never hold this mic up. It kept sagging,
mm,
so I got the Rode
yeah. The
boom.
PS1
Yeah,
from
and
Rode.
it's
Yeah,
great. It's been perfect. But anyway, that Elgato camera is it the I think the title of what I saw came across said the ultimate the ultimate web camera or the it had a and it's
yeah,
supposed to be really super 5000K and 180 FPS or something like these
right.
ridiculous. But
Yeah,
anyway,
sometimes
yeah,
I
I
think
heard
they
about
just throw numbers at the consumer. Like if I tell them that it's big numbers, it's going to be great. But apparently, not knocking Elgato, I use a lot of Elgato equipment
yeah.
in my own, YouTube rig and all that stuff. I don't know how we got on the Elgato. I guess we were
That can
talking
that
about
that
the
camera that they come out
Mark,
with, yeah,
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 which is actually a really good camera. Not a stills camera, by the way. For anyone
yeah.
who is a little confused at what we're talking about, we're talking
Yeah,
about
it's
a
a video.
webcam.
It's like a webcam. Yeah, but
Yeah,
to get back, we did get kind of went astray a little bit. But to
yeah,
get
rabbit
back to
trail.
to get back to your when you got that camera, you said, oh, it was the kids. Then you
Yeah,
started taking pictures of your kids, and then boom, you start taking pictures of other families' kids, and then it leads to maybe a couple of bucks, maybe.
yeah. So honestly, my business didn't actually come from portrait photography. For a short period of time, I was actually photographing products because I
Oh,
didn't like photographing people except for my kids. And the only
I
reason I
see.
photograph my kids is so that way I'm documenting their life and as they're growing. So
I
that's,
I have regrets about not. See, I was a stay-at-home dad, and I don't know why, because I loved these things that kids do. I mean, that's why you take pictures. I mean, these kids, they're your kids. They do these things, and you want to, you want to take a picture of it.
yeah.
I never got bit by the parent taking pictures of his kids bug. I never, I mean, I took a few, but it was, and I wish that I would have been really, probably like maybe the way you felt. Oh, I've got to get more and more and more pictures of my kids. I would have probably had an arsenal of photography equipment by now.
Yeah, yeah, and my wife did a really good job because she used her cell phone like
So she took a lot of pictures of the kids too, then, huh?
oh yeah, she took a ton of photos, and I took as many photos as like I took different photos. Like she took the photos of the kids finger painting and stuff like that. I was more of like, how do I get like really nice portraits to hang up in the house,
Oh,
and
I
stuff like
see.
that, right? I wanted
Yeah,
to create like the boutique type photos, and I didn't want to have to pay an arm and a leg to go
yeah,
get
because
to.
well, I remember we had. Let me see.
Are you gonna say Sears?
Yes,
Like the Sears Photo Labs?
yes, those,
Yeah,
and also there's another one. There was a big another one. Oh, Tommy Mills or something. I
yeah,
don't know if
that's a new one to me.
I don't know if that was, but anyway,
Walmart used to do
Olin
photos.
Mills, that's who it is. Olin Mills
Mm,
Photography, big, huge. But we went to the Sears and the Pennies too. Pennies
yeah,
had a
J.C. Penney's. They
J.C.
still do it at
Penney's,
J.C. Penney's.
yeah, and it's like, and then everything's sweet, and then your kids are great, and then you make an appointment to go get the photos, and there's like $5 billion, and it's oh man,
Yeah,
okay, I'll get them,
yeah. You got
and they're
Doctor
great
Evil
photos,
putting his
yeah.
pinky up. That'll be $5 billion. And you're like, man, I guess kids, you're not going to college. Like, we got to have photos of you.
I know college is out. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's the main reason why I picked up the camera and
Yeah.
really to capture the kids. And that just naturally led to me learning more and more about photography, which, is capturing the subject in the appropriate amount of light.
But not
And
negative exposure, though. Not negative. No, not
yeah,
negative.
unless you're going for low key photography, which that'll be a topic we talk about. Because that is an art form,
Oh,
photography.
absolutely. And this opposite, high key. That it is. All
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is.
And
Yeah.
that would be like positive exposure, right? High key.
Yes. Well, yeah, I guess it would be. Now, if
Yeah.
you get into the gray area, what kind of exposure is that?
Neutral. We'll just call it neutral.
Neutral exposure.
Yeah.
That's when you line up the right. You line up your little thing right in the middle. You know, and
Yeah.
it's
Right at that little zero tick mark on your exposure.
but another topic, the rules. Okay, does that thing have to be right there in the middle before you can snap the shutter, or does you have to have it on that part of the graph right there on that one third part right there,
Yeah.
and then it's uh,
I think the
hey, that's
answer is yes, but no.
positive exposure. Yeah, it has to be
Yeah.
positive exposure.
Yeah.
I guess, don't it? I don't know. You want it to
Well,
be positive exposure.
yeah. I mean, again, it comes down to what is the final result you're looking for out of the image that you are trying to make. And there's an argument between, do you say make a photograph or capture a photograph?
Somebody, where did I? That's an interesting point that you brought up right there. There was, I don't know who, it was one, it was, I think it was a famous photographer's quote or something that says, you don't take photos, you make them. You make
Yeah.
photos. And then I got to thinking about it. Well, the camera takes it. So, I mean, if you want to, the analogy, I mean, most photographers understand, no, we don't really take it. We are creating something, from what we're seeing. So, yeah, and I started saying that a lot in I made this instead of saying I took this photo, like I would post a picture of something and said instead of saying I took this photo on such and such, I would say I made this photo on. And
Yeah.
now I'm kind of gotten away from that, but I mean it's true. You make it. You really make it. I mean in all actuality, you are making the image what you want people to see.
Yeah, the way I like to consider it, at least, and not that this is right or wrong, is I'm making a photo if I'm heavily manipulating. Like I love to use Photoshop and On One and other photo editing apps to really turn the photo from something that wasn't necessarily reality at the time.
Right.
But if you're into photojournalism and you're capturing the moment, and maybe you're just doing some very basic color correction, maybe even cropping just to
And
bring a
that's
little
all it
bit more
should be for
focus.
photojournalists, right?
Right.
You got
And
like
that's
yeah,
more pure to the scene. So I would
yes.
consider that to be capturing the moment or capturing an image
I can agree with
because,
that. Yeah.
so I think, and then you're taking it when you're just like snapshots. Like, you're like, oh, look, snap. And
And that's
then
all you're
you,
doing. Yeah.
right. So that's kind of just the way that I rationalize making, taking, and capturing photos because
Oh, I can certainly see. Yeah, it makes it clear. Okay, that's what you're doing. If yeah, I can certainly see that. Photojournalism. I've always thought that was a fascinating area to
yeah, yeah,
photography. Really, it's amazing. There's so many things about it that I'm still learning. I
yeah.
never knew
So
how to focus stack until recently.
what kind of photographer would you consider like yourself to be? Like genre wise, what kind of photography style do you resonate the most with?
That's a tough question. I'm still trying to decide. I love I love I love outdoor. I love being outdoors, but I'm not a great nature photographer.
Okay.
I love flowers. I love doing some micro if I can get it right. If I can get it in focus right, that fascinates me too. But if I had to say, okay, this is the kind of photographer, this is kind of photography I'm, really enthused about. I can't really put my thumb on exactly what it is. I love waterfall. I love motion blur. And the aerial photography is another aspect. If you got a drone, you know what I mean. It's beautiful from looking top down because we don't look that way naturally. We look out, in front of us. We
Yeah.
never look at things from the top down. So that's an aspect that What
Yeah.
about
So
you? I mean, maybe you have a little bit more easier way of defining what you like to.
yeah. So, I mean, me personally, I like macro photography. Like if there was a thing that I could photograph all the time, which I guess I could, nothing's stopping me. But macro photography is by far my favorite genre. There's times where I'm photographing people, and I'm thankful for the technology in the R6. It makes it so much easier to photograph people. Like I have recently started a headshot business, and the
That's
R6 is
easier with. It's great for that, then, huh?
Oh yeah, the
I've
eye
yet to take my
autofocus.
R to a wedding. I'm shooting the R, Canon R, EOS R. That's their first
Yeah,
mirrorless,
yeah.
and
I
it's
shot a wedding with the EOS R.
from the difference between that and I had the 6D Mark II,
Okay.
and I love that camera too. But this one, when I started taking pictures with it and looking, it just made my compositions better.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I could see that. And
And
that's a conversation between mirrorless and DSLR. Like
oh
when it
yeah.
comes down to compositions, which one do you prefer? Like
So was the
I'm
R6 your first mirrorless?
no. So my first mirrorless was the EOS R,
Oh, okay.
which I still have.
Okay. Yeah, that's
That's
which
my
is what I
second
have.
body.
Okay, all right. That you still have it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I still have it. I use it whenever I
it's
photograph
I love it.
events.
It's a great. The only thing I wish that now that I've learned how to focus stack, it does not have focus bracketing. The EOS RP does, but the EOS R does not have
Yeah.
focus bracketing. And not no big deal breaker for me, you know. I mean, but when I got the EOS R, I never even knew what focus stacking was.
Yeah, and that was an interesting choice.
For
Canon.
macro photography, though, I mean, a lens consideration. I mean, what lens do you use for your macro photography?
So I have a 100 millimeter Tokina lens.
See, I don't have
Uh,
one of those. I need. See, there's another thing I said. I need.
there goes that gear acquisition syndrome
there goes
again.
that gas again.
Yeah. Nah. So I am actually debating on getting the 100 millimeter Canon macro lens. Um,
Oh
I just
yeah,
I just haven't pulled the trigger on that one yet because I haven't been shooting a lot of macro lately. And I have an 85 millimeter. I have almost all of the budget prime lens for the
for the
RF
RF.
system,
Yeah, I do too. I do
with
too.
the exception of the
I've got one of
24.
the L's, the 70 to 200 f2.8. I have that one.
Okay.
L. Yeah, that's the most expensive lens I ever bought. But I did have the L in the EF 70 to 200 too, but it was only f4. But
Yeah.
this RF 70 to 200 f2.8 has been the most expensive lens I've ever bought.
Yeah. I love using the 24 to 105 f4 L RF version. I've never owned a Canon camera until the EOS R because I was all Nikon. And the only reason I didn't go with a Nikon Z system is the day that I wanted the camera, I had gear acquisition syndrome really, really bad. I go into the camera store and they didn't have any
They did.
Z cameras in stock.
They didn't have it in stock, and you
All they
couldn't wait till
had,
they got it restocked.
I could, I chose not to.
Oh well, yeah, of course, I
And
got you.
I was in Alaska at a local camera store that unfortunately went out of business due to COVID. They just couldn't keep up with the
That's sad. Boy, it put a lot of them out, didn't it?
yeah. So this was obviously before COVID. I bought my EOS R in the I think it was actually 2019, December of 2019. I
Yeah,
bought
because
that.
I think they came out in 2018. I think is when they came out with it.
Yeah. So I was a little late to the game with the mirrorless because
Oh
my
yeah, me too.
D610 was holding true and true. And
Yeah,
oddly enough, I didn't do macro photography when I was shooting Nikon. I was actually doing a lot of like isolation work, like shooting still images of flowers and small pieces of nature. And I used a 51.8 Nikon lens for that.
and
So
you was getting paid for this work.
no, I didn't get paid until I actually got the EOS R.
Oh,
So
okay, that made you a professional.
yeah.
There's
It
another
just,
thing. That's a whole nother discussion too. I
yeah,
mean, are you a pro? Is that camera a pro? I don't know. I
yeah.
hear that a lot.
Any
I hear that
camera
still.
today is a pro camera. Like if you get paid at the end of a job,
You're a professional. Yeah,
yeah,
I
that
look at it like that too. Yeah.
that's all it is. So, and I got paid with my Nikon D5200. Would I consider myself to be a professional photographer at that point? No, but I did get paid to do, just some small portraits. Some families that were like, "Hey, can you just take our picture?" And
Yeah.
they paid me $20. Like
Yeah.
I didn't
Or
make a lot, but you know,
I actually tried to set up a studio. This is when let me see, how long ago was that? Not that long ago, before COVID hit.
yeah.
I was trying to, okay, I'm going to do this. I made up my mind. I went out and I filed for a tax number and got that and got some nice prints online and some really nice photos. Had set up a little, put in, we went in with about, I think there was 10 of us in local coffee shop. They turned they was opening it up into a coffee shop plus studio area for different artisans. Like I was one of the
Yeah.
two photographers, and then they had a somebody that made jewelry that came in and rented out a little section. And so I set up, put some pictures there, had some enlarged, and then all the trouble came with self marketing, and I'm awful at self marketing. I cannot stand.
Mm.
So I just put the pictures in there. If they sold, they sold. If they didn't, they didn't. I didn't promote myself well, and I still don't. But I did sell a couple of photos there. But and then it got to be, well, the IRS said I got something from them saying you neglected to report your income. Well, I didn't make any income. Well, you still have to report zero if you don't make any. And then it just got to be, oh, this is too much of a hassle. So I decided not to. Plus, I think if you get a young, if you're younger and you get this, you should have a younger start at it. I'm consider myself, I don't know, I don't like to say old man. I'm 66, but I mean, trying to get photography gigs. You see an old man coming at you with tattoos, look, and and somebody's going to want you to take their picture.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me. I don't know, but I mean, like you said, you take your aunt or your cousin or your wife's sister wants you to take pictures of the family or something, so you do that, and they give you a 50 or something, and then I was happy
Yeah.
doing that. I enjoyed doing that.
Yeah, there's definitely a confidence thing that comes along with photographing in general, especially
Oh
when
yeah.
you're dealing
Oh
with
my.
people. And
Yes.
one of the biggest challenges I have when it comes to photographing people is posing them and making
That's
them feel
tough.
comfortable in front of the camera.
Yeah.
And I recently, last week, I photographed a yearbook or the yearbook photos for a homeschooling group that our kids go to, and it was a great experience. But getting them to relax and to pose them, and again, this is
What was the
all
age? What was the age group?
uh, they were from preschool, or I guess not preschool, kindergarten, all the way up through high school. Some of them were seniors. It's a homeschool group, so
Okay.
it's a little bit different than a traditional school because there's really there's no age, or I'm
But you
sorry, no
still had to make them
grade.
comfortable.
Yeah,
It was still your job as a photographer to pose them and make
yeah,
them feel. Yeah, yeah. That's hard. I agree. That's hard. It's
and
really hard to do. I watched a ton of videos. I do weddings every now and then, and I would watch videos. How do you pose the bride? How do you pose the groom? How do you pose mom and dad? And it's just. But I'm
yeah,
a natural. I kind of like. Um, I was a garden writer, and I gave garden lectures too in front of people all the time. And I would, so making someone feel comfortable is a little, I mean, talking, it's a little bit different than when you have a camera in your hand,
yeah.
but I can still use my ability to put people at ease at a garden talk to put them at ease when I'm taking their picture. And most of the times, I did a couple of family shoots with little kids and things, and they had a blast, and parents loved it. But nowadays it's getting to be a lot of work. And then again, my age, you jumping around, weddings is hard. You're jumping around and you want this angle, or that angle, and
Yeah.
so I've slowed down. And then when you suggested maybe a podcast, I thought, you know what, that'd be real nice, easy kind of a slow down thing to do right there.
Yeah. And it's just as simple as us having a conversation casually like we've been doing.
And hopefully other people will enjoy it.
I, you know, I think they will. As we bring it to a close, is really just what is the heart behind the show? Like, what would you say? Like, if there was one thing you can share with any photographer that is listening, and hopefully they've listened to the end of the show, what would that one thing be?
Take as many pictures as you can while you're young. And when you get old, still take pictures. But I mean, no, just take pictures. Get out there or make them. Just there's just so much enjoyment out of it. And
Yeah.
if you're enjoying it, you'll rub off on a lot of people. They'll know, and then they'll say, "Hey, that guy's look at him. He's having fun taking photos. I want to do that."
Yeah. Okay.
What about you? What would you say?
I think it's along the same lines is don't hesitate to get into photography. If it's something you want to do it. There are a lot of people
Regardless,
that I've ran
like
into.
you said, you held up your iPhone, and they're all over the place. Don't let that,
Yeah,
prevent you.
I've run into a lot of people because I do teach photography, or at least that's the way I like to explain
Or
it.
let your iPhone be a start to your whole photography thing if you want to do it that way.
Yeah, and I always tell people, if you want to get into photography, just grab a camera and start. Because there are a lot of people who think that they have to wait until they're either invited to get into photography or they're waiting for someone else to encourage them more. So if there's a sense of encouragement that I can give to anyone who's listening, if you are interested in photography, go ahead and grab a camera and just start. It doesn't matter what you take pictures
Look up
of.
either one of us. Look up if you have anything you want to. I mean, when I first started, what intimidated me really right off the bat was the exposure, aperture, and shutter speed. Those three things right there, I struggled with terribly. And I started shooting in manual right off the bat. I never shot in auto.
Yeah.
But I almost was like, oh man, can I do this? I got really discouraged, but just like you said, don't get discouraged. Stay at it. There's all kinds of people out there that are more than willing to help you.
Yeah. And I think, there's definitely for every one person who's willing to help, there's probably 5 people that are looking to just keep you from picking up a camera because they think you're going to hurt the industry. And if you are one of those people that think that a new photographer is going to overcrowd the space or hurt the industry or anything like that, you're sadly mistaken. That's just not the way it works.
I used to hear that a lot too, Chris. I know that's weird, man. I used to hear that a lot. What, are you kidding me? That is negative
exposure.
Negative exposure. You don't want that negative. Keep those negative vibes away from me. I don't want no negativity, man.
Yeah.
We don't need that. The world's got too much of that already. Let's positive.
Yeah. So I'll let you go ahead and shout out your Vero because that is where I spend a lot of I can't say a lot of my time, but that's where I post a lot of my work.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, and I used to post there, but since Vero came along, if you upload a photo and then someone sees that photo and you click on it, that's how they took it. They don't do any kind of weird things to your photos. It's full size. If you took it and you uploaded it and you click on it.
Not sponsored by Vero, by the way. We just appreciate the app.
We are not, and there's no ads on Vero either. We are not sponsored by. Who is our sponsor?
We don't have a sponsor.
Connor and Christopher Free Will Photo.
Yeah.
That's who our sponsors are.
There you go.
My Vero is. Let me turn around. I'll have to look and see what it is. I have a photo of it, but I mean, I can.
Yeah. Well, while he pulls that up, you can find me at Free Will Photos over on Vero. And I do check the messages there, and I do post there fairly regularly. So
Yes, he does, and he's got some great stuff up there too. And
yeah,
you can get me at TCFROMKY.
yeah.
At TC from KY
And
on
both of those are
Vero.
going to be down in the description box. So if you want to check us out or just connect with us over there, we highly
We'd
encourage
be
it
happy
and
to.
would
Yeah.
appreciate it.
We
Especially
be
if
happy
you
to
are new
connect
to
with it.
photography and you're like, hey, I have no idea where to start. You can start with us, and
Well,
we'll point you in the right direction.
And I keep telling myself that I'm old, but I'm really. Chris, when I first was interested in screen recordings and things like that to help, to for my YouTube channel, and I wanted to learn, and I don't remember what video it was of yours that I came across, Chris. So, and you right out of the ballpark, man, was willing to help me, no questions asked.
Yeah,
And that's what photography, and that's what it's all about. I mean, there's so many people that want to help and that will help. All you got to do is say, hey, man, I need some help.
yeah. I don't know that you need help until you say it, or like TC doesn't know that you need help until you say it. So please reach
Please
out.
give me some
And
help, man. I still
yeah.
ask, there ain't there's never a dumb question.
Sounds like we're begging for people to contact us.
It does, don't it? Okay,
All
we're
right.
done. I'm done begging. I don't want to sound like a begging.
Yeah. On that note, we'll go ahead and end the first episode of Negative Exposure. So
That's
thank
right.
you all for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you so much. Good night. Goodbye. Farewell. We'll see you next time.